So we are now on Daf Kuf Bet Amud Bet at the Mishnah on the bottom. We are talking about how to properly tie our harpsichords and when we're allowed to and not allowed to in the Mikdash based on, again, we'll get to the question of Doraita versus Durabanan as we have been doing so far. Okay, so I'm going to share a picture, which will hopefully help. Again, this applies both to the picture here is violin, but it applies for almost all string instruments. So not much difference in terms of the halacha. Just the question is, yes, this is how for all string instruments, right? So koshri nima b'mikdash avalo b'medina. So you can tie a string from a musical device, a musical instrument that is broken, while you're in the Beit Mikdash, but not in the Medina, but not in the rest anywhere else besides Beit Mikdash. Presumably because this is industry Drabanan, and for what purpose? Again, this is most likely using the voda in the Beit Mikdash. We'll get to more as to that part in the Gemara. The imbat chila kan v'kan asor. But if you have simply a unstrung harp or the musical instrument, you would not be able to do so for the first time on Shabbos. Okay, so as far as which part is which, right? So okay, so again, so this is our diagram. As they come up, I'll point at them. Okay, so
yeah.
Okay.
Rabbi Eliezer de Amar, sorry, skip the line. Or Minu. Nima Kinor Shinizaka. So if you have the string of your harp broke, Lo Haya Koshra Ela Onva. You would not actually tie it fully with a knot, rather you should tie it with a bow. So then Lo Kasha, Ha Vaha, Rabbana, Ha Rabbanan, Ha Rabbi Eliezer. There's no problem. Here's what Chachamim and one is Rabbi Eliezer. So the Chachamim think that it's forbidden to tie even a bow, whereas the Rabbi Eliezer says that you're allowed to tie a bow. Rabbi Eliezer, our Malchir mitzvah dochin to Shabbat kosher. Rabbi Eliezer then who says that since it's something you need for the mitzvah, i.e. for doing the vote of the Beit Mikdash, therefore you would be allowed to tie it. Rabbanan to Amr ein dochin onva, but for the Chachamim who say that you can't actually tie a full knot again, they would say that you simply can only tie a bow. Rabbi Eliezer, nami. Wait a minute, but according to Rabbi Eliezer, then no matter what, it should be perfectly fine to do so on Shabbos in the Beit Mikdash. So what's going on? Ella lo kasha ha Rabbi Yehuda ha Rabban. No, we didn't mean Rabbi Eliezer. We meant Rabbi Yehuda. Because Rabbi Yehuda has the opinion that if you make a bow, that's not considered to be tying, which is why we all are allowed to tie our shoes, as opposed to the Rabbanan who say that making a bow would be a problem. Sorry. Rabbi Yehuda says that it is backwards. Rabbi Yehuda says that it is a problem, that if you tie, that it would be that a bow is considered to be a real knot, and it's assur to tie on Shabbos, whereas the Chachamim say that it's not a problem. Rabbi Yehuda libademan, and who does Rabbi Yehuda follow? Rabbi Eliezer kamar nami, and according to Rabbi Yehuda says that it's assur if you hold a Rabbi Eliezer's opinion that anything that's necessary for the upkeep of the functioning of the Beit Mikdash is what you're to do on Shabbos, then again, you can do it no matter what. So Ella lo kasha ha Rabbi Shimon ha Rabbanan. No, rather the two opinions discussed aren't Rabbi Eliezer, rather it's within Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan. So, and what do you mean by that? Titani lo Braita Ben Levi Shenifsaka lo nimor bechinoi koshra. So the Chachamim is saying that if you had broken a harp, you shall tie it with a knot. Rabbi Shimon Omer Anban. Rabbi Shimon says you should tie a bow, and therefore, right? So now we have it down. One says you should, one says you shouldn't, one says you tie properly, one says tie a bow. And now, seemingly all is well, but there's only one probably forgot. So, okay, right. So again, this is a question of you tied it, didn't tie it, and now is it. But the only thing is there's only one small problem. If you were to have tied a bow on your harp or your violin or your guitar, whichever again. Mikdash only had a violin. In the future, will the musical instruments change? I don't know. That's a discussion for another time. So again, what will music look like during the Beit Mikdash? Will it be a
BAYT.
Will it be will we be having like, well, does it sound like Beit Midrash? I don't know, but again, that's this question that would be worthwhile to figure out, because that could make a difference. Okay, but anyways, so the problem with tying a bow is Rav Shimon Elazar Omer Afi Ena Mashmata Takol. Is that the problem is that doesn't work for a musical instrument. It's a pretty big problem. We forgot. So Ella, what do? Mishal shel milmata v'korech milmala or mishal shel milmala v'korech milmata. Rather, what happened is that. So again, some people are familiar with how you tune a guitar or a violin. This looks familiar, but not a little diagram to explain to you. So basically, so one side is for one side came off, one side didn't. So then what you would do, the way that you don't actually tie knots, you actually wind it around the knobs. That way you can finer tune the object. So back then, I'm not sure if they didn't necessarily have knobs, but again, they would. You would wrap again, what would be tied on one end, on the other end, you would simply loop around and wrap. So here's saying that you would simply wrap whichever side was not the side that's currently tied. You would wrap around on the other side. So in other words, you simply would let it fall straight down, and then you would slowly, tighten it like that. That way you wouldn't end up. That way, it would be less of a malacha, and that way.
Rabbi, is that enough to fasten it? We're saying that would be enough to secure it.
That would, yes. That's currently how you fasten a string instrument. That's what you do.
Because it doesn't come unraveled when you're using it. No. If you've wrapped it like that.
If you wrap it properly, it should not become unraveled, and it ends up being tight. Basically, you wrap it on itself. Okay. For more technicalities on that, I don't know. I'm not a musician, but
I guess it's kind of like how tefillin stay on your arm, where you don't really tie a knot.
Right. So
you wrap it, and it sort of stays secure.
Right. The combination of the friction and the tension combine to end up keeping it in place, assuming you did it properly.
Okay.
So it can work. You just have to be again, the technicalities of how to do it would depend both on the type of string as well as the type of knob you have, but it's definitely doable. So Beit Ema, so that's what you should do. But if that's the case, then how do we explain our machloket? Then hav harabanan v'lo kashya kan be'emsa kan minatzad. So rather, both the opinions are taught according to the Chachamim as potter b'le'ezer, meaning that you can only do mitzvot that needs to be done today. Meaning if you could have done it from before Shabbos, you should have done it before Shabbos. But again, here the solution is that when are you allowed to permit actually doing a full tie? That's if it broke in the middle. Because if it broke in the middle, then you have to actually retie it an entirely new string because there's no other way to fix it. But if you came up on one of the ends, then you can be fixed either with a bow or by wrapping it around. Sorry, this is without talking about bows, but again, one option was again you do it in terms of the wrapping around. Another option is you do it in terms of the question of are you allowed to tie or to do something else? It depends on where it snapped. Beit Ema, Hav Emsa, Mar Savar Gazrinan, Mar Savar Lo Gazrinan. So other option is that both cases it could have snapped in the middle. The question being, do we make a gzera that you shouldn't tie it at all, lest you end up making a knot in multiple areas, or do we not make the gzera derbanan, and therefore we'll let you tie we'll let you tie it because we're not worried about you making a mistake in any other location either, and therefore we'll be fine to tie in the mikdash or elsewhere. Okay, so that's about music in the Beit Mikdash and how to fix the music for breaks. Right. So currently, the reason why that's losing our Shabbos in general is because your music your instrument will break, and then you'll end up coming to fix it, which will be mitake midoraita. So that's why, because again, the simple act of changing your music, the musical chord, and fixing it is a malacha midoraita. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit more graphic. So So you can cut off a wart in the Beit Mikdash, but not if you're in the I don't have a picture of that. Okay. We all know what warts are, right? It's a question, can you cut that off?
Maybe it's just as well. We don't want to be grossed out this early in the morning.
Fair, right? So you can cut one off in the Beit Mikdash, but not in Medina. If you want to see pictures on what is considered to be a problematic wart or not, please go back and look at various places in Seder Kachim where they do discuss in depth as to which warts are not warts are considered to be a problem, both for a Kohen or for a or for a korban. Okay, if you use a kli to cut it off, that's going to be usher to do so. Okay, now we'll get as far as it be. Okay, we'll get to the issues with the issues they're in. Again, the problem of being refuah, or potentially something else. We'll get to that in the Gemara, please. So urminhi, harkivo v'havato b'chutz l'tchum v'chatacho yavalto and dochin. Rabbi Elazar Omer dochin. So the question of saying that you can't do this is contradicted by a Beit, which says that, sorry, from another Mishnah, in Pesachim, it says that you're allowed to you're allowed to carry it. Meaning, if you have to bring a korban pesach from Chutz L'Tchum because it's an erev Pesach shakal haliyot b'Shabbat, like this year, right, where the day before Pesach is a Shabbos. So what you used to do is you can carry the lamb, bring it from outside the Tchum, and you can even cut off if it's got a mum that you can cut off. That'll make it a kosher again. You can also cut it off. So all these things ein dochin. They should not super override the Shabbos. Rabbi Elazar Omer dochin. Rabbi Elazar says they do override. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina Chad Amar Ha v'ha b'lacha v'lokasha kan b'yad kan b'kli. So Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Zichron, so one of them says that both cases are where it was a moist wort, and therefore when is it mutter to take it off? But you do it by hand, meaning cut it off with your using your nails or biting it off, as opposed to doing it with a kli, which would be a problem. And you're using a utensil of some sort, whether it be a knife or some other sharp implement. Another one says no. Either way, you're doing it by hand. And when is it a problematic? Right. So the problem is cutting off the moist wart, but a dry wart would be much to remove. And according to the opinion that says whether by hand or by use of a utensil, my time halacha. So the question is, if you say it's based on doing by hand or via utensil or an implement of some sort. So then why didn't he say differentiation between wet and dry wort? So Amarlach Yavesha Afilu B'Kli Nami Shari, because he would say that even if it was dry, you could even use a implement. So my time, why? Because you're not really doing anything. It's like cutting off it's like peeling off dead skin once it's dry already, and you're not really doing anything. You could have peeled it off without it. You just you thought it'd be easier to use this. Amar Hala Balaka Habivesha doesn't say whether it be wet or dry. My time will Amar Habiyad Habakli. So why did they say, if you say it's wet versus dry, why not say the other opinion? Amar Laka Habakli Hatanan Imakli Kamakanasor. So it said that regards to instrument, it said if you want to use it with an, because either way here, because basically there's a problem with the Mishnah we mentioned in regards to cutting of nails, that if you were to do so with in regards to Shabbos, that there's an issur using a kli in either case. So therefore it's a problem. It's a problem. Okay. So that's for Mishnah and Shabbos. So idach ha diktani hata mishum kabai iplugi rabbanan. Another, okay, and how does the other option? How could you say that if you say it's the other way around? So what's the machlokes Rabbi Elazar and Rabbanan about can you cut off the word or not? So right, so the reason why there it's listed as not an argument because they're not dealing with machlokes Rabbi Elazar and Rabbanan, whereas here we are. The idach dumia deharkivo havato b'chol tani derabbanan. Another option is that wouldn't we say that you're allowed to do so? It's when you're doing so in a way that is only derabbanan, similar to if you're carrying the lamb for the korban pesach. Because again, technically you're not really violating a malacha midaraita because we generally say that a living being carries itself. So therefore you're not violation of itself for carrying a lamb because the lamb could have walked. Just you decided, I was getting tired of pulling it, so I'm just going to carry it. Similarly, going to Zichron is also that we also mentioned seemingly as derabbanan. So both is midrabanan. Therefore, that's why it's compared to cutting things with by hand as opposed to using an implement. Okay. The idas herkivo delo Rabbi Natan. Another one says the carrying it doesn't follow Rabbi Natan. Damar chaya naseatzma, because Rabbi Natan is the one who said that it's only drabanan to carry a living being that can move itself. Havato mechos l'tchum Rabbi Akiva Amar tchum and another opinion says, well, we don't say the chaya naseatzma, and we also pass like Rabbi Akiva that tchumen is midoraita. So if you hold both of those things, then then that's why we're talking about the case involving cutting it off with a kli, because we're talking about cases midoraisa. Maitiv Rav Yosef, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Kal V'chomer, Ma Omash Krita Shehi Mishum Malacha Dochat Shabbat, Elush Mishum Shvut Eno Din Sheyitchot Shabbat. So Rav Yosef asks, Rabbi Elazar has a Kal V'chomer. So shchita, which is an actual malacha midoraita, right, doing shchita, shechting, it's English for ritual slaughter on Shabbos in the Mikdash, supersedes the Shabbos. Elu, so these activities that we mentioned they're all midrabanan. Eno din shidchut Shabbat. Of course, things are derabanan would if we violate deraitas for the sake of the Mikdash. Why wouldn't we violate any derabanans? So Ella Amar Yosef ha v'ha biyad. Ushvut mikdash b'mikdash shitiru shvut b'mikdash b'medina lo hitiru. So Rav Yosef says is that right? You could compare direct and derabanans, but the difference here is that specifically in the Beit Mikdash, we permit dinim midirabanan completely. But if it's something that's midirabanan done in the Beit Mikdash, or you're doing it anywhere that's not the Beit Mikdash, it is not permitted to do so. It is also midirabanan. So therefore, even though you're but it's mutter there, yes, it's mutter only when you're in the Beit Mikdash. It's not mutter anywhere else. Yativ Abaye v'kamer l'hashmatita. So Abaye taught this halacha in terms of doing dinim derabanan, not applying when you're not in the Beit Mikdash, but not applying when you are in the Beit Mikdash. So Eitzei Rav Safra l'Abaye. So Rav Safra asked him a question. Hayakore b'sefer al ha'eskopa v'itgalgal sefer miyado go lo etzlo. So if somebody was the case we have from a couple days ago of if you're reading your scroll on the stoop, right on the landing there, and then it rolls down into the Yirshut Harabim, you're allowed to roll it back to you. So v'ha deshvut b'mikdash b'medinahu v'lo gazrinan dilma nafil v'letuye, and there that's something that is midrabanan that would be allowed in the mikdash, but and yet we're not. And yet you're allowed to do so. Shouldn't it be what we do that activity be usher? I don't understand. Like why are we not making exer? Why are we not implying the exera of maybe it'll roll back up to you? So v'lo kimna b'skupa karmelit rishut rabba vert lefanad kimen igdo biado afilu shvut namileka. No, so Abaye says no, it's not a problem. Didn't we already establish that the case of when you're on that that landing or threshold and then it rolls down? That landing is a karmelit, meaning it's only a problem midrabanan to go from there to the Shut Harabim, and then therefore if you roll back to you haven't even there isn't even a direct isra midrabanan about it, and that's why you're allowed to carry it. So therefore that's why we wouldn't make it an isra and anything else there. So then Rav Zafra responds back to Abaye, I don't like this. Here's another example where you can put something in right before the child. Right, we let you put your korban Pesach lamb, assuming that the night of Pesach falls out on Shabbos. So you can put it in right before it gets dark, and we're not right. And then even though. Right. So here, this is a rabbinic decree relating to the Beit Mikdash that's happening not in the Beit Mikdash, and we're not saying that, and we're not applying the din of Shema Yechata B'Gechalim. Normally, for Shabbos, you're not allowed to put something in right before on a fire because we're worried that you're going to stoke the coals, and therefore it's not rabbanan to do so. Yet here for Korban Pesach, we're letting you do so, and you're not even in the Beit Mikdash anymore because you would eat it. You're going to eat it not in the Mikdash itself. You're eating it anywhere in your Shalayim. So what's up? So ishtig. So by silent didn't have an answer. Ki atalak made of Yosef, and then when he came to Rav Yosef, for Rav Yosef, he said, Amar le hachi amar li safra. So then Abai told Rav Yosef, here's what Rav Safra told me. And then Amar le, Rav Yosef responded back to him, my time alo to shani le b'nei chaburas reason him. So he said, so Rav Yosef had an answer. So the answer is you're right. Normally we wouldn't let you do this, but for the purposes of the Mikdash, people are typically more careful, and therefore it's allowed. Right? We're more careful in regards to things for the basic Mikdash than would normally, and that's why for Mizrach, that's why it would be allowed. Abai, why did he not? Again, this is a pretty good explanation. So why didn't he use this? So Kozin's reason hain amrinan, b'nei chabura's reason hain lo amrinan. You could say that. You can say perhaps permit the Kohanim for if they were roasting it for you, because Kohanim, like, this is their job, and they're much more careful in regards to Kachim and the like, and also Shabbos as a result. But on the other hand, for B'nai Chabura, remember, this is the Korban Pesach. Every single Jew is going to be there, so not every single Jew is as careful or as expert in what to do, and therefore they might make a mistake. So therefore but I thought you couldn't apply that. So, and Rava is another. So now we're back to the discussion from far much earlier. The question of why are you permitted to the difference between again the wart case versus the case of Korban Pesach. So he says Rava Amar Rabbi Lezer he. So rather the whole Mishnah we had before is talking about Amar Machshiri Mitzvah Dochem B'Shabbos. It's talking about right from Parak Rabbi Lezer we mentioned earlier today that if something is necessary for a mitzvah on Shabbos, it overrides Shabbos. What Rabbi Eliezer, the comment to Efshar l'shanoye mashaninan. And what Rabbi Eliezer agrees that whatever you should have done before, or should have been done in a way to not be done to be Esther derived, you should do. So Mahi. So what do we mean by that? That you should do as much as you can to not violate this or in the full sense. The title in the Braita, Kohen sh'alta bo yabelet, b'chavero chotchav lo b'shinav, b'shinav in b'chlilo. So what's the case? So we learned in Braita that a Kohen who has a wart, so you don't cut it yourself. Rather, rather his friend bites it off for him. B'shinav in b'chlilo, right? With his teeth, yes, but you can't do it with the utensil because basically we say that it's not good. And yes, it's a little bit gross, but basically it's because it's not considered to be. It's only considered to be deraita if you do use your own teeth. Or if you were to use or a cleat, because otherwise you're not doing it properly, and therefore it's only a violation of Rabbanan. So chavero in ihulo, right? His friend can do it, he can't.
Wouldn't we rather get a non-Jew to do it?
Correct, but again, this is referring to the Kohen for the basic Midrash purposes. So so you'd run into other issues of Truma Tara potentially by having a non-Kohen be involved. But
it's another Kohen.
Yes.
Okay, understood.
Right, because there's currently in the Beit Mikdash, and there might be Tara issues involving using a non-Jew in the circumstance.
You could also learn this as doing it in a smart way. Vishinantam levanecha, not she.
As far as the teeth.
Learning, but not from using your teeth.
Oh, very nice.
That's the dental way.
And that actually isn't that part of the word from going into Psachim about knocking the child's teeth out, whether we actually mean teeth.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Dentist.
Okay.
Yes. So okay. Right. So according to who is that about the that you're supposed to bite it off using your teeth? I'm not sure it's good for your teeth. I'm sure Dr. Ellie will know more about how to do that. Again, whether that's a good practice or not, I would think not. At the very least, it makes me nauseous. So Mani. So who is this? So Ilema Rabbanan b'Mikdash. You're saying this according to the opinion of the Chachamim and we're in the Beit Mikdash, therefore it should be allowed. Kivan de Amir Rabbanan ba'alma mishum shvut hacha mali. Who Mali Chavero. So if you're saying that the whole problem is only Midirabanan, and then according to Chachamim, so then what's the difference whether you do it versus whether or not your friend does it? So, right? So what must be the case be? El loved Rabbi Lezer, the Amar Ba'alma Chayav Chata. So rather, it must be we're following Rabbi Lezer's opinion that in general, you would have to bring a chatat for biting off your own nails. Or wart. V'hacha af al gav d'machshiri mitzvah dochin et Shabbat kama d'efshar la'shanuye meshaninan. So you're right. So according to Chachamim, you're right. It would you could bite it off just as well as your friend could. But here's going to be Lezer says that you'd be chayv chatat, and we don't want you to be chayv chatat in order to do so. So therefore, you try and do, even though technically if you had no other choice, you could. But since there's other option, we try and be ma'ayin in the Chilul Shabbos if possible. So therefore, we'll have it. We'll do with the shinoi and have the other person bite your wart off. So, or the other option is la'olam rabbanan the alta b'chreso hachanami. So the answer is the other option is according to Chachamim, and this is on your it had grown on your stomach. Therefore, since it is easily removable by anybody, therefore you can do it too. But hacha b'ma'askinan kagon. So what's the case where we are requiring the fellow to the fellow Kohen to do it? Kagon shaltalo neshecha b'gabo o batzila yadav the ihu lo ma'azi shakil. So the answer is that the priest received the bite on his back or elbow, somewhere where he can't really properly access it fully, and therefore you're going to have to have somebody else do it. Whether it's I see it's on your side somewhere. Okay, so e rabbanan neshkele nihale biad. So and according to Chachamim, so you should simply have the other priest do it by hand rather than with a kli. And then the Tiyusha Rabbi Eliezer, the Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Bachloket biyad of a kli difrei chayav, because we said we're going according to Rabbi Eliezer. And Rabbi Eliezer said that everybody agrees that you should be chayav v'chata if you use the utensil to cut this thing off. So v'lita mecha Rabbi Eliezer nami elishkalei ni'alei biyadei, and therefore Rabbi Eliezer should also take it off by hand. So hi mai, what's the case? Iyamart bishlama Rabbi Eliezer dehainu degazar yad atu kli. So I understand according to Rabbi Eliezer because that's why we say the hand you be forbidden as well, because maybe you'll end up coming to use a utensil as well. Al iyamart rabbanan hi nishkalei ni'alei biyad b'tula midi. If it's according to Chachamim, then let him remove it with his hand, and there's no problem whatsoever. And rather we must say that the BAYT we taught earlier is Rabbi Eliezer. If not, you could have simply removed it with your hand, and that would have solved all of our issues. Okay. Kohen shalaka be'etzba'o korech aleha gemi. So if a Kohen had injured his finger, he should wrap around it with a little reed. So we have that diagram of that here. So meaning here. So think this, but then it's on the finger. So again, you do the minimal amount that you can cover it. So all you do is you do, let's say, a little reed. Okay, so the mikdash avalo medina. So this covering of the wrapping the wound with a reed is allowed to be done in the Beit mikdash, but nowhere else. Im lahotzi dam kam kanasur. But if you are if you're going to remove blood by doing so, then it is forbidden in either way, because you can't put on a band-aid to absorb the blood.
So just a practical question. I know the time is late, but are we not allowed to use band-aids on Shabbos? What's the malacha?
Okay, so you're allowed to use band-aids for specifically to prevent its abrasion, but if you're using it to heal the wound, that would be considered to be a problem.
So this is a healing.
Yes, the issue of refuah. So if this happens, you get a paper cut, you should not put the band-aid on right away. Rather, you should try and prevent the you just put anything over it to absorb the blood. Then afterwards, if you want it to not get re-aggravated, then you can put a band-aid on afterwards without putting on any vasopressin, and that way you would not technically doing refuah. You would be preventing it from being rubbed against, which would not be an issue of refuah. But if you're doing it in a way to make the wound heal faster, that would be a problem.
Right. I guess it depends whether there's antibiotic or something on the Band-Aid.
Correct.
Like a healing thing.
Correct. Using vasopressin, right, or the triple ointment, whatever it is, could create a lot of issues. For more on that,
Okay, sorry, thank you.
It's okay. What if we don't finish? We'll pick up on Motzei Shabbos, and then we should have time to finish everything. Don't worry. So Amar Yehuda, Braid Rabbi Chia, Lo Shanu Elo Yemi Aval Tzultzul Katan Have Yitur Begagadim. So there's another problem with the Kohen is that you only wrap the minimal amount. If you were to try and wrap even like a small, instead of just the reed, but like let's say to do like an actual bandage, that would be a problem of having an extra clothing for the Kohen when he's doing the avoda. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Lo Amar Yitur Begadim El B'Makom Begadim. No, you can't. That's not relevant here because Kohanim don't wear any of the bigdei kahuna on their fingers, so therefore there's no problem. Aval shalom makom begadim lo havi begadim. Right, but anywhere where it's not a place the Kohen would normally wear a beged, it's not considered to be a problem. Let's say to have, a band-aid or a bandage wrapped around your finger. Okay, but tipukle mishum chatzitza. So then say, there's a problem with chatzitza when you're doing the voda. So the answer is it's on your left hand. So therefore you're not going to be doing. You never do the voda with your left hand, only with your right hand, and therefore there's no problem. So or that it's in your right hand, that simply the wound is in a place where it won't end up touching any of the kalim, and let's say the back of your hand. So therefore, again, it's never going to touch a kli, and therefore there's no issue with chatzitza for that. So kli ged Rava, and this goes against what Rava said. Amar Rava, Amar Chista, b'makom gadim afilu nima achat chotzetzet shalom b'makom gadim shalosh chotzetzot pachol shalosh and a chotzetzot. So this is against Rava, as Rava says in the name of Chista, that where there's clothing, any amount is a problem. In a place where there isn't clothing, it has to be 3 by 3, meaning 3 fingers width by 3 finger widths, and most bandages probably not be that much. So this seemingly is not according to that, if it's being a problem to wrap even the smallest amount around. So at Rabbi Yochanan vade pligi. So everybody definitely disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan. He says that it wouldn't, he says there's no problem if it's not where beged is. That's clearly not what we're referring to in our Mishnah. Rav Yehuda, Barei Rav Chia, Minim Apli. Who says he argues with Rav Yehuda as well in regards to the question of being of the 3 fingers widths, what we just quoted above. So Shani Tzultzul Kat Nechashiv. Now the difference is that you can't say anything really because it's Tzultzul, meaning the small little sash is that you wrapping around is a problem because that's considered to be significant, even if it's less than 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. Sorry, 3 etzbaot, 3 etzbaot, and that's the difference, right? So because certain things they're considered to be important items, and that's the problem. So lishna chrina, another option. Amar le, Amar Rav Yehuda, Beit Rav Chia. Lo shanu ela gemi aval tzultzul katan chotzeitz. So they say that only that's not chotzeitz, that's really not significant, and it's fine if you wrap a little bit of the reed around it, because that's barely there, not noticeable, and not considered to be important. But as a problem of the small little sash, meaning made of cloth, would be a problem. So Rabbi Yochanan, lo amru chatzitzim, pachol mishalosh al shalosh el makam gadim. Val shlov makom begadim shlosh al shlosh chatzot. Pachot mishalosh al shlosh enu chatzot. V'hainu derava amar Rav Chista. And Rabbi Yochanan, so what's his full opinion, which we mentioned earlier, but again we hadn't fully fleshed out, and I would say it now, is that there's no chatzitza if it's less than 3 by 3, unless it's in a location of where the Kohen normally has his begadim, where he normally has to wear his priestly vestments. Aval shalom makom begadim, but if it's somewhere else, shalosh al shalot chotzetzot, anywhere else on the body is 3 fingers to 3 fingers is a problem. But pachot mishalosh and chotzetzot, and if it's less than 3, there's no problem. V'hainu derava amar Rav Chista, and therefore it's ends up lining up with Rava named Rav Chista. Okay. So now, last 2 minutes, let's just go do a quick wrap up.
Can I ask one quick question before we start the wrap? I don't know what happens under the talus, but when the Kohanim blesses, aren't they using both of their hands? And would that be an issue if it was covered like that?
So the reason why the Kohen covers their hands is because there's a halakhic problem of basically when the Kohen blesses us, basically the Shekhinah comes basically. No,
I understand that. I wasn't talking about that.
If he has a band-aid while he's doing,
yes, correct.
So the answer is there's no issue of chatzitza except for a Kohen doing unless it's a avoda in the mikdash.
Oh, it's only the voda, not anything
correct.
else. Okay.
Right. So then, so for instance, like if a Kohen, so then could, for instance, like a Kohen, let's say doing Pidyon Ben, right? So chatzitza there wouldn't necessarily wouldn't necessarily be a problem. Trying to think of any other circumstance that.
Okay, and these blessings that they do aren't considered part of the avoda, so
I mean,
there's no
it
issue.
was done as part of the vote of the Beit Mikdash, but for our purposes, it's not.
But I'm just asking in
Meaning,
those times,
yeah,
in temple
those
times.
instances, in the Beit Mikdash, I'll need to get back to you on that.
Okay, you hear my question. Okay.
Yes, I hear your question. I will check to see if there's an issue. I'll have to go back and look in Halacha.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, so just quickly wrap up. So we discussed a couple of cases today. We discussed the question of how of tying and untying musical instruments, whether that's a director or Jurabanan, and how to do so. We discussed about how to cut off warts when you can and can't do it, whether or not when you're in violation of refuah, when you're not in the violation of refuah. We also discussed whether or not you're allowed to wrap a little bandage around your finger and whether that generates an issue or not, as well as the question of here again, this wrapping around is not, there's no issue of refuah in the way that you're doing in this circumstance. But again, if you were to do derech refuah or if you're squeezing out blood, it would be a problem. And then we were trying to figure out what degree of the size of the bandage would be considered to be a chatzitza for the purposes of doing the avoda, and where on the body if that would make a difference or not. And we will be continuing this discussion, hopefully Motzei Shabbos at 6:30.
Same link, right?
Same link, yeah.
Okay, have a good Shabbos, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Shabbos.
Rabbi.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Be well, everybody. Bye-bye.